It's the worst social unrest in France since the infamous protests of May 1968, and it all started with an online petition posted back in May. People angered by government plans to raise fuel taxes to fight pollution called for lower prices instead. The petition later snowballed into a full-fledged protest movement against government policies. Its members called themselves the Yellow Vests, referring to safety vests mandatory in all French cars. A date was set for a first street protest on the 17th of November. Some 300,000 people across the country turned out to man roadblocks. Sporadic demonstrations continued, leading up to another big rally the following Saturday. But protests turned violent when thousands left their approved demonstration point to vandalize shops on the Champs-Élysées and burn cars. The extent of the discontent caught the government off guard, and chaos worsened the following weekend. For the first time since the 1968 student protests, hundreds set cars and buildings on fire, hurling rocks at police and looting businesses. Protests continued the weekend after that before Emmanuel Macron decided that enough was enough. In an attempt to quell the unrest, he addressed the nation to announce new policies.
I am declaring an economic and social state of emergency. An employee's minimum wage will increase by €100 a month starting next year without it costing anything more for employers.
But that was not enough to stop the movement. In the run-up to Christmas and New Year's, protests and clashes continued every Saturday. As the demonstrations went on, the images of violence in major French cities continued to shock the country. Another controversy emerged, this time over the use of allegedly non-lethal flashball weapons. These riot guns have been widely used since protests began in November and have caused serious injuries among some protesters and even passers-by. According to newspaper Libération, some 82 people have been seriously injured since the beginning of protests. 12 people have lost an eye after being hit by flashballs. In response to the continued protests, the government has opened a 2-month national debate. All French citizens have been invited to take part in a consultation to suggest changes that should be made to the country's financial and political system.